Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Um, and today we talked about the SNL uh, 50th anniversary special. I don't know why we didn't talk about it yesterday. I don't know. Maybe Joy really wanted to get in on it. But it's interesting. I don't really give a shit how people if people were mad at the Tom Hanks thing. It really wasn't all that funny. Um, I get what they were doing. I think Sunny is 100% correct. It was very pointed what they were trying to say about the whole thing. I've never thought that that character was actually really very effective, but they I don't know. Let's talk about the fun stuff first. I thought that I'm not a huge fan of Adam Sandler, but he did this song, which was basically like a tribute song to the show, that you could tell was very heartfelt and personal for him. That I just thought was super super sweet. Um, and you know, I, I'm not a fan, but I'm not a hater. Uh, but I do have to say, somebody said something online. It's like you've never heard anyone say anything bad about Adam Sandler, which is true. I mean, and more often than not, people just praise him about how generous he is and how kind he is and how funny he is. And I think that's something to be said, especially in a business filled with so many egos. Um, I did feel like the original cast got a little short shifted. The Ebersol years, people kind of were kind of ignored. They kind of glossed over most of the first decade, which I thought was weird. Um, but I did like the sort of mix of cast members and that people from different eras ended up sort of having getting to play together with a ton of guest stars. Meryl Streep fucking was hilarious. Um, that whole character, Kate McKinnon's character that she does when she's in the, she's an alien abduction character is so fucking funny. But then to bring her in as the mother, hilarious. And she fucked up her lines, which is even funnier. Um, but oh, I lost my point. Oh, I know. It's about SNL because somebody once said, and I do think that this is true. People tend to say whatever the cast was when they were in high school, like that's their era. And that makes a lot of sense to me because that's really usually when people are becoming aware of the show and understanding its sort of its significance and the, the it's not as subversive as it used to be. Um, but the nature of the comedy, their minds have developed enough to understand the intellectuality of the jokes, um, and uh, and so that's sort of how people just sort of think about the show in a lot of ways. And I think that's probably true for most people. I think I mean, I remember watching it as a kid at the beginning. Um, I'm old, but and Rosanna Dana. Speaking of which, I would have liked to have seen Jane Curtin on Weekend Update, but maybe she didn't want to do it. I don't know, but I do feel like the show sort of hit its sort of cultural relevance peak in the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, um, in through to the what's his name, Andy Samberg, um, Seth Meyers, Maya Rudolph, and Kristen Wiig, like that sort of era, because that it sort of it overlaps, but I feel like that's and because I mean, gosh, they were doing Sarah Palin after Tina had left, but I just feel like that whole era when Tina was the head writer, it was so female empowered and it was so smart. Um, Seth Meyers is also incredibly smart, and those two as sort of head writers and at the Weekend Update desk, I think that era to me is really when it hit its pinnacle. I'm not a fan of Colin Jost and the overgrown frat boy humor of Weekend Update. Um, I like that they enjoy themselves, but sometimes it seems like they're only there to entertain each other, and that's a little upsetting. Not upsetting, just disappointing. Like it's not as funny for everybody, for the rest of us. It is funny when they crack each other up, but at the same time, it's like you're supposed to be cracking us up. Like do better than that. Um, it seems a little lazy sometimes, I guess I'm saying. Anyway, so SNL 50, and you know what that to me, like looking at that show, because that studio is not very big, and the amount of people that were crammed in there, and what chaos it must have been backstage to get all of those people and all of that props and costumes and sets, and John Mulaney's sort of Broadway tune mashup medley thing. I I've never seen a straight guy with such a great handle on sort of Broadway parody, uh, because they're always fucking brilliant and they're huge spectacles. So like I wasn't expecting to see a sketch comedy show. I was expecting to see sort of a tribute, and in a way, it was a regular episode and a tribute at the same time, just 3.5 hours. Um, and that's an impressive feat to pull off. Um, so that was groovy. And I think that Lauren Michaels has backtracked on whether or not on retiring after this year. Because that begs the question, who is gonna take over? I think Steve Higgins is probably the most likely choice, even though he's not the most famous choice. He's been backstage the longest as a producer. I don't think Tina Fey wants to take on that role at this point in her life. That seems like a limiting thing for her to be sort of confined to. Anyway, SNL. The show's a fucking institution. It's never going anywhere, I don't think. And as long as they can keep creating the newest the next sort of buzzable moment. The digital shorts stuff. If you watch the documentaries, because they are available, I think, on Peacock, they do a whole thing about how the Andy Samberg and Lonely Island digital shorts came about, and sort of by accident and became a cultural phenomenon. And that's sort of what I'm talking about when Saturday Night Live was sort of creating the culture, the sort of buzz and like that Lonely Island stuff. And now, I mean, they're still doing them. They've always done films by somebody, but that sort of era. And I think because of the rise of YouTube and people could see them without having to watch the show, and that whole thing just really gave the show a boost of significance that it probably wouldn't have otherwise had. Anyway, then they went on to talk about, oh God, the cuts at DOGE and DOGE. It's so stupid. And I don't remember which one of them said this. I think it was Sarah Haynes. But if you want to get operational efficiency, she's 100% correct. You go in, you find out who does what the organization structure looks like, find the redundancies, the inconsistencies, and the synergies. I hate that word. And then you trim accordingly. And there's a whole industry that does it. It goes into organizations, and like you interview people, you talk to them. Everyone tries to defend their job, but you have a keen enough eye to cut through what it all looks like, and build your own process maps and workflow maps, and figure out where there's waste. Just intermittently firing people because they're on probation periods, and don't think that these are all young people starting out in their careers. People switch jobs within the federal government, and so they could be 16, 18-year federal employees. They've just moved from one department to another, and so they have to go back on a probationary period because of that. And it doesn't. It's so arbitrary, and it makes so little sense. But when Joy is talking about its chaos and It is chaos, but that's the point of it. And I think that's the thing that people keep forgetting is that they want these government institutions to fail. They want to be able to point and say, see, they can't do the job so that they can privatize it. And who's going to get the government contract to privatize all of these things? Musk and the billionaire oligarch class. Like they're they they want to reap the benefit. They want to take the money. They want to take our taxpayer money and have it pay them to do the same thing and probably poorly. Um, and Whoopi's 100% correct. No one's looking at the government contracts that Elon has because this is a giant conflict of interest. And he had between, I think, 11 different agencies, 32 different investigations going on into all of the companies that he owns. Guess how many of those investigations have continued? Zero. They're all over. Huh. How convenient. Um, and what are we doing about it? And the answer isn't James Carville's advice, that fucking skeleton with skin who is still playing a 40-year-old political game. I don't know why anybody has him on as a political pundit. He's so far past his usefulness in that realm. No, standing by isn't isn't how you help fix it. And that's what the Democrats don't understand. And I've been saying I was telling blue in the face. I've said this over and over again. I've been saying this for years. Um, the Democrats are losing support because no one feels like they fight for us. When they're in power, they don't um, they don't fight for us, and when they're the minority, they just roll over. And so, no, that isn't going to help. It's not going to help save democracy, and it's not going to help turn out your voter base. Doing nothing isn't what we're paying you for. It's why we elected you. It's not why we vote for you. It's not to do nothing and let the other side fail. Because in this instance, if the other side isn't going to fail because we're doing nothing. Because what they're trying to achieve isn't making government run better. What they're trying to achieve is take it over. So shut the fuck up, James Carville. Um, and that's Tuesday.